things have escalated rather quickly over the last couple of weeks, and I think this attack on the synagogue is going to be an inflection point. And I think we're going to look back on this point as the time when things really started to escalate. So just have a look at this. And, the second paragraph, I think, makes for quite extraordinary reading. Our Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, has asked organisers to cancel the terror march that's going ahead in our capital city of London today in support of a terrorist group, a domestic terrorist group that's been prescribed by the government as a terrorist group. So the event's going ahead in support of that group. And the chief of our police has said, can you please not do this because it might escalate tensions? Our Home Secretary has come out and asked these people marching in support of a terrorist group, a domestic terror group, if they would be a bit more British and, look at things and kind of try and find that decency within you to act like human beings for once in your life. And so here is, if you've forgotten, a little reminder of what Palestine Action is all about.
Palestine Action itself has been successful. So here are some of the sites that have already been shut down that we've mapped out here. And as you can see, it's really all across the UK. There are plenty of places, plenty of locations yet to be shut down. It's either manufacturing, it's factories, it's headquarters, offices, whether it's locking yourself on, whether it's getting up on a factory and starting to hit everything that you can find with a sledgehammer and everything in between. We will continue to operate and not give in to intimidating tactics. Obviously now, this week, we've seen this escalate to trying to prescribe Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation, which is absolutely ridiculous. Who can be an activist? Anyone. Yeah, if you want to take direct action for Palestine, then you're the right person, basically. Previous actionists range from nursery teachers to surgeons. We literally have had every kind of person from 18 to 80-year-olds taking action with Palestine Action. Prior to your action, you'll be given contact details, as I said, to a solicitor, which will be written down on your arm. They specialise in protest cases. We do not use duty solicitors. They will apply for legal aid on your behalf if eligible. Everybody, as I said, even if you're a millionaire, you get free legal advice in the police station. Other than that, highly recommend taking a book. Most of the time, at a police station, they'll either say they don't have any, or when they do, it's such trash.
And that would be funny if it wasn't so serious. And, the conceit brimming over the top there. I'm really a loss for words, Just before you consider going out and committing a terrorist attack, a homegrown terrorist attack on the country that you're living in, and disable their ability to defend your realm and your borders, you might want to think about some decent literature to pop in your pocket, because if you get arrested and change your life forever, and have a criminal record for domestic terrorism, it's really, really important to have some good literature for when you're locked in the police cells. Now, there have been many instances of Palestine Action going into law-abiding businesses who've once sent an invoice to a company linked with Israel, and they've went in and smashed those businesses up with sledgehammers, smashed windows, smashed roofs, terrorised businesses, throughout the whole country. And now they're organising, or the organisers behind a terror march. And so, just to put this into extreme focus, we are now in a situation in Britain where we have members of parliament and, in essence, leaders of political parties, which I'll show you in a moment, Mr. Zach Polanski. We have leaders of political parties advocating for domestic terror groups marching through the streets of our capital city, being promoted by mainstream media, and I'm talking about Channel 4 here. So you've got a mainstream media outlet promoting the leader of a political party which represents approximately, so they say in the polls, about 10% of our population, who is advocating for a terror group, a homegrown terrorist group, to march through the streets of our capital. Hundreds of thousands of people, it would seem, are going to be there in the immediate aftermath of Jewish people being slaughtered in the street. That's where we've arrived at this week. That's just happened. And so we are in trouble here, and I don't think generally people realise, and we've got our Home Secretary impotent, unable, it would seem, to prevent this from happening. We've got the Chief of Police, Mark Rowley, the Met Police, asking people, if you could, can the domestic terror group not march through the centre of London because we don't know what to do about it? And the reason why he's saying that, of course, is quite clear. They can't arrest anybody. There's too many people. And look at the mess that we've got ourselves into. Look at the mess that our Prime Minister has created, recognising the state of Palestine. We've got the Home Secretary, who is a supporter of the marchers, having to come out and ask them not to do it. I mean, what a state. Unbelievable. And so here is Mr. Zach Polanski talking at his recent party conference about the homegrown terrorist group Palestine Action, who is going to march through our city centres in support of homegrown terrorism.
We cannot talk about stopping genocide without talking about draconian crackdown on the right to protest, happening against those taking action for Palestine, using terrorist legislation to arrest hundreds and hundreds of protesters for simply holding up a sign. The prescription of Palestine Action must be withdrawn, and every parliamentarian, Labour, Tory, Reform, even Lib Dem, who failed to vote against it, need to hang their heads in shame. This country has a proud tradition of protecting civil liberties. But once again, a Labour government is cracking down on our rights. From terrorist prescriptions against protesters, to banning journalists from their conference, to diving into a rushed evidence-free plan for digital IDs that will only discriminate mainly against minorities. The alarm bells of authoritarianism are ringing loud and clear.
And so Palestine Action were not prescribed a terrorist group for holding up signs. That was the leader of the Green Party. I've already debunked everything that he just said there. And so that's the state we're in, the post-truth state that we're in, where people just listen to slogans and don't look at any evidence whatsoever. This group was prescribed a homegrown terrorist group not for holding up signs. They were prescribed a terrorist group for being terrorists and destroying military infrastructure in the United Kingdom. And Zach Polanski there got a round of applause at the conference. These people are taking us to our doom. And, the Green Party has been co-opted. They used to have a relatively mild lunatic in Carla, and here's Carla here showing her economic illiteracy for all to see. You can have some left-wing views on economics. That doesn't make you a bad person in my book. You can advocate for wealth taxes. It is economically illiterate to do so, and I've previously covered that, because you can't tax rich people to the eyeballs because they just move away and then you lose everything that they were giving you. But aside from that, that is just a position people can quite rightly hold if that's what you want. You can advocate for a wealth tax. That doesn't mean you support terror. But this collar's now gone, and they've been replaced by this radical extremist, who I would say Zach Polanski is a radical extremist because he's promoting a terror group, and Channel 4 were promoting that speech. So there's the mainstream TV outlet. You've got the mainstream leader of a political party, Zach Polanski, and of course, let's not forget, we can't leave the deputy leader out, because should something happen to Mr. Polanski when they get into office, then the deputy leader of the Greens would have to take office and run the country for us. And I don't know if you know a lot about Mothin Ali, but let's cast our minds back to when he won his local election seat last year, and these unforgettable scenes of joy emanating from this man were there for all to see.
I hereby declare Mothin Ali is elected as councillor for Gibson and Hales Ward of Leeds City Council.
Palestine will be free! 3 years ago we started this campaign. I started alone, and Allah sent his angels to come and assist me. For the community of Hales and Gibson, who are fed up of being let down by the Labour Council, who have been fed up of being taken for granted, who have been fed up of being taken for granted, who have been fed up of being neglected by this rotten council, who are fed up. Look at the language you're using. Back off. Don't you back to the win for the people of Hales and Gibson. This is a win for the people of Gaza, who have been neglected. We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar.
I'm very, very disheartened generally with the state of play at the minute. I don't understand why we've slipped so far. I analyse this time and time again to try and get my head around what's happening to my country. And, sometimes I'm just really lost for words. I don't get it. What's happening here? Why would British people vote for that man? Why would mainstream TV channels allow the leader of a huge political party in our country to advocate for domestic terror groups? Why would our Home Secretary be an activist? Why is our Prime Minister impotent? Why is the whole Labour Party calling for violence against their political opponents? Why is a proscribed terrorist group being permitted to walk through the capital of our country today by the tens, hundreds of thousands possibly, and the police are standing by and doing nothing?